Hi guys, I'm Anissa and I'm back with another video. Today I want to share with you a mid-month wrap-up where I'm talking about the books that I've been reading so far in April. I've decided to do wrap-ups twice a month or something like that to make sure that I don't have too long videos to film and to make sure that I don't forget too much about the books that I have been reading. So I'm hoping this will work out for me. I have finished 5 books in March so far, so it's not as much as usual, but it is obviously partly because of me moving and I haven't had as much time. I figure that I'll have more in the later part of the month, and so I think mid-month wrap-ups make sense still. The first thing that I finished was Going Postal by Pratchett. This is the 33rd or something like that in the Discworld. I'm actually unsure at this point. This is the first one that follows Moist von Lipwig. It is part of the Industrial Revolution, and Moist von Lipwig gets attached to the postal office, and this was a whole lot of fun. I knew I had a good feeling that I was going to really enjoy this, because generally what has happened is if a Discworld book is a favorite amongst the Discworld readers, it usually is also a favorite of mine. There are some, I mean, of the others that hasn't really, that's where it's been like more hit or miss if I liked it or not. But like the general favorites that everyone talks about, like Hogfather and apparently Going Postal and sort of those books, I've definitely enjoyed just as much. So I had a lot of fun time with this, and I think it was a perfect thing to pick up in the beginning of a month. I actually picked it up, I think, by the end of March, and sort of was listening to it a little bit while I was packing down a couple of things, so that also made that process a little bit more fun. I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it and highly recommend it. And it's definitely a decent enough entrance point into the Discworld. I mean, you can read majority of the books without reading anything else, even if they are in the middle of a series or something, because they are hardly ever connected. Next up, I finished Last Sacrifice by Richelle Mead. This is my reread of The Vampire Academy, the last book in that series, and I have enjoyed doing a reread, and this used to be one of my favorite books in the series. Together with the third one. The third one is still my favorite. I think this one wasn't as good at this time around as it was the first time I read it, but it was definitely very interesting, and I do think it wrapped up the series pretty well and set up stuff for the next next series, spin-off series very well as well. So I'm happy I finished this one, and I just sort of left my old review, put spoiler tags on it, because apparently I just spoiled everything that happened up till that point. So I thought if anyone was wanting to pick up the series and hadn't read it before, I didn't want to spoil everything that happened up until this point. But it definitely starts out with quite a bang, and after things that happen in the end of Spiritbound, and we sort of have Rose and Lissa in different parts of the world, separated again, because Rose is searching for something that has to do with Lissa, and Lissa is trying to work on something that has to do with Rose at the courtyard. And I'm not going to say more than that. I enjoyed my time, and I ended up giving it, I gave it a 5 stars again. I just overall just love this series and have had fun rereading it. And it was definitely a perfect book to pick up when I have been feeling so distracted with other things. This one didn't take much brain power because I already knew the story and the world, and plus it's YA, and so it doesn't have the same amount of density than other books have. Another book that I finished was The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah. This is, I think, the first in a series, or is it a standalone? I've forgotten right now. It's a multiverse science fiction kind of thing with a mystery plot to it. It also has LGBT themes. So it follows this woman called Kara, who is able to travel between these universes, other dimensions and stuff. but it comes with a cost, because every time you travel to some place, their doppelganger in that life dies, and at this point there's only 8 of her own selves left, so obviously if she has to be careful about where she travels. You get a sense of a mystery element to it, because you find out that everything isn't as it seems. Like, she's used because she is able to travel between the worlds, and not a lot of people want to do that because of the high stakes that are present. But our main character is brought up without much of an attachment to anyone, so she doesn't really mind in that way. I had really high hopes for this because I heard really excellent things from people that I usually trust with their opinions. But I feel like even if this book is claimed to be an adult science fiction, it read very much like a young adult science fiction, and our main character seemed very immature. Like, sometimes you seemed like a 13, 18, 14-year-old girl or something like that, with the way that she was acting, and sort of that pulled me out of the story. I also would have wished that the author did a little bit more in-depth explanation about the world and how it was working with the multiverse stuff. There are some times and places where I feel like she went a little bit deeper and you got a little bit to know a little bit more about the world, but then she just sort of pulled herself out of that again, and then was very surface level again, and it kind of disappointed me a little bit. I did end up enjoying the romantic element quite a bit. I didn't love it, but it was okay. So there are elements of it I liked, but the majority of it I just disliked, and I was a little bit bored and just wanted it to end, basically. So I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. Next up, I picked up Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This is a alien sci-fi thing set on a different planet. We're following 2 perspectives. We're following Georgie and Viktor. Georgie is this human girl who has been abducted together with 10 other women on a spaceship by this alien people. But then she is sort of left by, like, they are sort of stranded because the aliens that abducted them in the first place, like, have left them by themselves, and they are not able to, they don't have any food, they don't have anything, you know, at all. So she goes and hunts for food, and then she sort of stumbles upon Viktor, and Viktor is this blue horned alien that lives on this planet and is an inmate of this planet, and he stumbles upon her and instantly mates with her. She doesn't know this, but that happens, and things get on from there. This is very like erotic romance, and I don't usually tend to enjoy erotica because I feel like I definitely usually think I need more substance to my books, but I end up surprisingly loving this one quite a bit. I thought it was so much fun. I had a whole lot of fun with this, and I felt like I got to know the characters pretty well, even though it's only like 188 pages and there are like 5 sex scenes in this. I feel like I got sort of an interesting attachment to the characters and what they were able to do, and the world in itself, and it definitely made me want to continue with the series. I'm very eager to see what happens with the other Ice Planet Barbarians. I ended up super enjoying this one and gave it 4 or 5 stars. I was highly entertained and didn't expect to be this entertained, to be honest, but it was a really fast read and I had a lot of fun with it. The last and final thing that I finished over the first half of the month was A Complicated Love Story Set in Space by Shaun Hutchinson. This is a science fiction young adult standalone book. It's a science fiction book set in space, and we're following 2 boys, Noah and DJ, but there's also another character on board on this ship called Jenny, and they don't really know why they're there, but they're doing everything they can in order to sort of escape this situation and doing what they can to make the most of the situation that they're in. And yeah, it turns out to be a quite different plot than I expected. I didn't know very much about it at all. I haven't read anything by Shaun Hutchinson before, so I was really eager to figure out what he was like as an author, and I was very, very pleasantly surprised. I feel like I've seen people who usually read his books saying that this is definitely not his best, and with that in mind, I'm super eager to read something else by him as well, because I definitely really enjoyed it. I sucked everything up about this book, and I really enjoyed the romance in this. I thought it was so cute, and the banter between the characters was so interesting, and I was really gripped in the plot of this, and I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars. I'm very, very eager to read other books by Shaun Hutchinson for sure, and I'm super happy to say that I feel like I'm back with my reading being better quality than it was like in March and majority of March and sort of into this month, because yeah, it makes me a lot more happy when I'm reading books that I like, obviously. So just to let you know what I'm currently working on as well, I have 2 books going right now, and I'm planning on picking a couple of books up next week, but I am not going to talk about the next pickups. I'm just going to talk about the books that I'm currently working on. I'm about 2/3 of the way through Stormglass by Maria V. Snyder. I am hoping to actually finish this book today. I have a bit of a chunky stretch left, but I finished all of my chores for the day, so I will be able to have some time to read. I also have to go on a walk with my sister, so after I've done that, I have everything else off for the day. The other book that I have started on is Thought by Pratchett, the next one in the Discworld, and I am super enjoying this one so far. It follows the City Watch in Ankh-Morpork, and Sam Vimes is investigating a murder that has something to do with the dwarfs in the city, and I mean, I'm having a lot of fun with it so far. I am 98 pages into it, so about 100 pages into it, and closing in on the third, with the first third. So I'm very much enjoying that as well, and expect I will get further on today as well, as I'm doing some cooking later. So I figure I might be about 100, maybe 150 pages in by the end of the day. Yeah. So those were the things that I've finished so far this month, and what I'm currently working on. Let me know in the comments down below how you've been doing so far. Have you read any of the books that I've been talking about today? Have you read any favorites recently? I'd always like to know. And yeah, so this is everything I have for you today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Goodbye.